Why, hello, everybody. I hope you are all safe and well during this coronavirus pandemic. Myself, I am quarantined on this Washington beach. I cannot leave it. For the safety of humanity, I cannot leave my home, this beach. So, in today's video, what I want to talk about is 2CB. I'm going to tell you about a 30 milligram 2CB experience that I underwent last Saturday and all of the strange and wacky things that occurred to me during it. I'm going to hopefully contrast some of the effects that 2CB has with psilocybin and LSD, which really feel like 2CB's cousins. And how about I just go down a timeline of what exactly occurred so that I don't steer too far from the truth. I'm really excited to start what I hope is the first of what I want to call my Shulgin series, where I take molecules that were designed specifically by the legendary chemist Alexander Shulgin. Now, if you're not aware, Alexander Shulgin is essentially one of the great godfathers of psychedelic chemistry. He is responsible for many of the compounds that we see in activity today. This molecule, 2CB, is one of Alexander Shulgin's finest inventions ever. He invented it in, I believe, 1974, and he spoke very, very highly of it. I believe he was trying to create some type of a mescaline derivative or something of that nature, and he stumbled upon 2CB and found it very, very interesting. And so, while I didn't have any intention whatsoever to record what was going on during my 2CB trip, I did still take some amount of notes, and those notes to me now are sort of like anchors in me recalling this experience. And so, without further ado, I think I'll just get into it and start talking about the trip itself. All right, so the first thing that is important that I bring up is what the setting was. The setting was beautiful, to say the least. It was my backyard on a Saturday at sunset, and also underneath a cherry blossom tree. Now, this is so picturesque, it almost sounds absurd, but it's where I was, and it's where I decided to trip. So I take a 30 milligram capsule of 2CB hydrochloride, and I'm ready to wait. The classic period of time that any psychonaut experiences right after you take the substance. So, all right, we're about 30 minutes into the experience now, and I really recall feeling this sense of the mushroom come on. I was starting to feel a bit weird, and so I started to lay down in my bed. And I know that's not necessarily the best idea to immediately lay in a prone position, but it's what I felt my body needed at the time because I was feeling very weak limbed, I guess you could say. I was feeling butterflies in my stomach, not the sort associated with anxiety, but more so a nauseous feeling. The nauseous feeling wasn't all that significant, but it was a general uncomfortable feeling in my body that I wanted to sort of just lay down and breathe through. So, as we passed the 30-minute mark on the trip, this uncomfortable feeling in the body sort of starts to move into this very pleasant sensation. And this is where I got really interested because at the same time that the body load sort of switched from this uncomfortable feeling to euphoria, the visuals increased in intensity as well. And the visuals are, it wouldn't be accurate to say that they look like LSD, but they seem, but they have the character of LSD. For example, one of the characters of LSD is that if you look at something like a popcorn ceiling or an interconnected series of branches, you'll form patterns in between those things and you will create strange shapes out of connecting objects. And that occurs on 2CB as well, but not to such an overwhelming degree. So at the 35-minute mark, I'm having this switch to a pleasant body feeling. I'm much, much more sensitive to light, which is something that you would probably expect from a lot of phenethylamines and also just tryptamines in general. But what was unique to the 2CB was there was almost like this glinting rainbow in my peripheral vision, translucent rainbow sort of visuals that weren't that significant, but were very interesting, and I couldn't help but note. So, what occurs next? All right, so I'm hanging out with my legendary trip sitter and best friend Kylie during this experience, and she has taken this supply of 2CB previously. She actually took it at the same dose, and she's sort of starting to giggle at what my response is to it because, we just passed the 35-40 minute mark, and she's recognizing a lot of the ways that she was acting when she started to come up on 2CB. So she's asking me, about the color enhancement and things like that, and I'm confirming it. So I'm feeling a bit excited about what's to come next. So what's to come next? Now, at about the 45-minute mark, I made a pivotal decision to smoke cannabis along with my experience. Anybody who knows me knows that I tolerate cannabis pretty damn well as I'm a regular user, but the second that I smoked this cannabis on this 2CB come up, it catapulted me into the experience. What was previously subtle, almost minor LSD distortions became almost indistinguishable from some of the motifs that I've had on LSD experiences. Now, what's unique about 2CB is that it has the character of LSD in terms of the visual domain and somewhat maybe the headspace, but the body sensation is much, much different than LSD. The experience is really, really heavily mediated through your body. The visuals were great and all, and seeing seeing morphing patterns and the general liquid distortion that can sometimes overlay things on psychedelics was really interesting. But what was really going on was I felt like I was just melting. I felt just like so pleasant and comfortable and warm. I remember being on my bed and just wrapping myself up in my blanket and just feeling phenomenal, just feeling absolutely amazing. So this cannabis is having this amazing synergistic effect with the 2CB, and I'm sitting on my bed, having just gone from a bit uncomfortable to I'm here, I'm in the game. I'm very curious to where this experience is going to take me. And if you know me, you know that I also continued to smoke cannabis and the effects also continued to increase. So each time I'm smoking my cannabis, it's like a shockwave to the trip. It's just like magnification fivefold. So as this synergistic effect with the cannabis and the 2CB is building, I can't help but notice that I'm being carried away into what feels like a mushroom dream space sort of. My head was becoming very spacey and my goals were not what they were beforehand. They were becoming a lot more abstract and also very strange. And as this is going on, I'm noticing the peculiarities of body sensation that are going on, this warm, almost orgasmic euphoria that's taking over me. And I'm just trying to fully surrender to it. So as we hit the 1 hour mark and 1 hour plus, I have something here that I wrote in my journal at the time, and that was this feels so much more warm, swimmy, and physical than LSD. And that definitely still holds true. It's almost like you stepped into acid's brother or something. The main things in the visual field are enhanced light perception, this occasional translucent rainbow visual hallucination, the traditional patterning that can occur on people's faces, say if you're watching TV or another person, but much more subtle than LSD, and of course this watery uh, filter that seems to lay over everything that you're seeing. And at this point, I write down that it feels like my eyes are vibrating. And they definitely were. My eyes, I could not focus on anything to save my life. And I can only imagine that that definitely amplified the visuals themselves. I also wrote that this was a really pleasant paradox to be in. You might think that having simultaneous stimulant like effects and also, uh, you might say, reverie like dreamy feelings in the body, you might think that would be a bit uncomfortable. I loved it. I really loved it. So let's move on here. But just before we move on, I have to say that you must join the Discord. In the description below, you can find a link to a community of over 8,000 psychonauts just waiting to share and exchange ideas about psychedelics. I'll see you there. About an hour and a half in, I'm basically a caged bird. I'm seeking freedom. I'm looking at my screen door that's in my bedroom. I'm looking at the backyard, eyeing up any nature that I can see. Because at this point, you're having what would probably sound in the moment to be cringy, profound realizations about the importance of things. So I'm seeking nature for whatever reason. I'm feeling so I think I said earlier, so orgasmically good in my body and so spiritual and analytical in my mind, which I did not expect to be such an amazing crossover, that I just have to immerse myself in my backyard. So I go out to my back patio wrapped in Adam's Trip blanket, which this is not an advertisement, is an absurdly comfortable blanket. Um, I wrap myself in that thing, and I also have a camping chair on my back deck, and it reclines all the way back. And so I do that. I lay down and I recline all the way back on a beautiful day with a blue sky. And so when I look up, what I see is the cherry blossom tree in my backyard, which is in full bloom, mind you, and it looks amazing, and this amazing blue sky. And I guess it's just the 2CB, or certainly cannabis is not this dramatic. I just felt like everything that I was seeing was so divine. What occurred after laying down on my back porch is probably one of the most powerful spiritual experiences of my life. And I think if I had to describe why it was, is that the entactogenic effect that certain psychedelics have, where the borders between you and another person dissolve and you can relate to other people much better, which is actually one of the reasons that psychedelics are very useful in therapy, I think occurred to me, but with a tree. I'm not sure if this is technically possible, but what seemed to occur is the boundaries between my personal consciousness and where I perceived the separation between me and a tree dissolved completely. What occurred first was this feeling that my feet were dissolving into a root network. And this, of course, was the body load that was going on. This was the heavy, physical, warm blanket feeling that was taking over my body. But my mind interpreted that as my feet dissolving into soil almost. And because of the very spiritual state that you're in at the time, you connect that to the tree that you're looking at. So I'm feeling as though I'm melting into soil and sort of filling up this form of a tree, and my consciousness is going with it. And this isn't anything so dramatic as DMT, where I feel like I'm being shot out of my body or anything like that. It was more like a physical feeling of shared sensation. Sometimes when you watch ASMR videos or people going to the chiropractor or getting massages, our own bodies can actually feel that. And I believe this has to do with mirror neurons. What occurred to me was what basically felt like a mirror neuron effect with a tree. And what I did after feeling like I merged into this tree network was try to put myself in its perspective, to try to imagine the rhythm of the seasons to a tree, to try to imagine the passage of time to a tree. And this was very easy to do because the body was so willing to at least simulate what it felt like to be a tree. And when I'm in this state, it feels like a sort of dialogue almost, and they're saying things like, "Oh, curious Quentin." Like I keep hearing "curious Quentin," um, and then I get this strange impression that this is a form that I relate to, the tree form, but is not everybody's path. And so at this moment, things become really trippy because it feels basically like I'm being prepped by this cherry blossom tree to enter the hierarchy of tree life once I die. And of course, this could be seen as, a human trying to escape death and all of that. But what remained was a very weird impression that a tree was telling me that I must prepare to enter the tree network myself. And on reflecting on this, I found it really funny because I thought, wow, basically, my experience in a nutshell was Bran from Game of Thrones. If anybody watches Game of Thrones, there's a boy who basically at some point becomes immersed in a tree system. And by doing this, he has a sort of collective awareness of the ongoings of the world. And I basically was like, well, damn, I thought that was a unique experience where I basically melted into a tree and filled its form up with my consciousness. But turns out that's just a fantasy trope. I'm not sure if I was influenced by Game of Thrones or this is like a phenomenon that's been occurring to humans and I just stumbled on. But yep, that's some of the things that occurred to me. And at some point, my amazing trip sitter Kylie came by and she asked me how I was doing. And it was the classic situation where you just have a ridiculously spiritual experience, and then somebody asks you what occurred, and it immediately trivializes it. I think I said, it's going great. I said something that really did not even come close to underscoring what occurred. And I stayed out there as the sky continued to darken, and the beauty of the world did not go away on 2CB. It lasted for a total of about 5 hours, I would say. So as the trip is going from peak and transitioning into come down, the stars begin to come out. And this was a beautiful, beautiful resolution to the experience. I had a very, what felt like in contact experience with what exactly it was like to be the first man to look out at the stars or to look out at trees and to wonder how they have such majesty and such seeming stoicism in the face of time's deterioration, and wondering how he can take that on for himself. Overall, if I was talking to a friend about 2CB and trying to tell them what exactly they might be able to expect, I would say something along the lines of, well, do you like the analytical mindset that acid can offer? Do you like the dream or visionary state of mind that psilocybin can sometimes put you in? Do you like the free association that sometimes you have between object and thought? Okay, well, now if you're interested in having a very pleasurable body load and euphoria throughout the entire experience, you might just like 2CB. That's what I would say. It's also worth noting that unlike LSD and unlike psilocybin, 2CB almost had a bit of an amphetamine kick to it. Now, this comes from some of my experience with Adderall, where after an Adderall dose is wearing off, sometimes you get the impression you want to take more. You just would love to take more because it would it would rekindle the state that you were in previously. On psilocybin, I do not get the urge to redose whatsoever. If anything, for example, my last psilocybin trip was literally 6 months ago or something like that, and I'm still just now preparing to do another one. And LSD, I also don't feel can become particularly habitual, for me at least. But 2CB was an interesting mistress because it felt so good in that first hour or so that I was wondering if I should redose immediately. I was wondering if I wanted double this experience. Now, this is not a recommendation, and you should absolutely practice harm reduction practices, but that's just where my headspace was at. I hope you've enjoyed this video where I talk about my most recent 2CB trip. You definitely can look forward to me taking more members of the 2C family. There are many derivatives of the 2CB molecule that have varying effects, so you definitely can look forward to me trying those as well. In the Shulgin series, what I would like to do is go through Alexander Shulgin, the legendary psychedelic chemist himself, 2 books, PCAL and TCAL. PCAL stands for phenethylamines that I have known and loved, and TCAL stands for tryptamines that I have known and loved. And I would like to go down his 2 texts and take some of the novel substances that he synthesized himself. So 2CB is an example of this. In 1974, Alexander Shulgin actually synthesized 2CB. All right, I think that's going to bring an end to my trip report on 2CB at sunset and my attempt to compare it to LSD and psilocybin. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and also leave a comment below if you have personally taken 2CB or if you're interested at all. I really want to hear what other people's experiences have been like on this molecule. Also, I want to say before I go that Test Kit Plus, link in the description below, is an amazing resource to acquire all types of test kits for different substances. If you're interested in this, you can find a link in the description below to my affiliate link where purchasing a test kit can give me 15% of your purchase. It's a great way to support this channel and also support your own personal safety. So I guess I'll talk to you guys later, and I'll see you next time. You didn't think I forgot, did you? It's the most legendary time of the day. It's the time to read the Patreon list, or should I call it the Scroll of Titans. Alright, here we go. Jason Barnes, Devin Hall, Rudy Riza, Sarap Chapagain, Antti Mikko Makinen, Rainbow, Overdue, Robbie, Jonathan Shinsky, 666, Cody, Ben, Bronson Silva, Connor Nelson, Dendare Lotus, Mike Wazowski, Lee Ron, Kevin, Lynn Norton, Meteor, Steven, Jack Donahue, Ruhan, Victor Franca, York Tarmalin, I'm trying, Louie, Chicks, Dylan Brown, Yehuda Pesture, Leo Avila, Ethan Beadle, Christian Bernadelle, I love you guys so much, Justin Mumma, Nathan Milbrandt, Jerry Sedaner, Turtle Toast, Nicholas, Nathan Yesheron, Jackson Powers, Professor, Tatum Scott, Jake Hall, Barnacle Blitz, The Happy Hour Show, Oven Wan. It's so cool seeing that so many of you are part of the Discord as well, and I've talked to you. Kenobi, Flameproof, Hassan Daramzi, Karenda, Dennis Sheridan, Toxic Player, Mohiadan, Three Pounder, Miguel Navarro, Ora McLeod, Alex Miser. I hope this just becomes a beautiful song and symphony over time. Lithium Blodwin, King Ragnar, Choosy, Ashkor Draxon, Eric Sear, Jedimenos, Adam Sornat, Damian Skoos, Austin, Frogman, Andrew Dowling, Pitkoob, Rakaya Benoit, Leg Edward, John Takusis, Voyager, Blue Thought, Tap, and my good friend Jonathan Johnson. Your contributions inspire me and ultimately mean the world to me. Thank you so much for what each and every one of you do for this channel, and I'll see you next time.